Welcome to the Horse Racing Network with me, Izzy Phillips, and I'm joined today by racing broadcaster and journalist Paul Alster. And Paul, we are going to have a little look forward to the flat season, and we're going to give our viewers our flat horses to follow. We've been quite excited to do this, haven't we? Do you want to give people the rundown of what selections we're going to be bringing them over the course of the next sort of 15 minutes?
Okay, well, basically what we said was that we should try our hardest to come up with 5 horses each to follow. A 3-year-old colt, preferably classic aimed, a 3-year-old filly, an older horse that may compete at group level or in very good handicaps, and then a couple of handicappers that we think are going to be worth keeping on side as well. So that is the format, because it's very difficult the start of a season to focus on a small number of horses, but we're going to do our very best. And then when we get a little bit later on, we'll be able to look back and see how good or bad we have done with our 10 selections between us.
We were saying, Paul, weren't we, before we started recording, that, you know, it was actually quite interesting to go back and look back at the flat season and all the sorts of horses that we'd forgotten about. So hopefully here we can dig up a couple that you'd forgotten about as well, and they might just bring them to the fore that can go in your tracker for hopefully an excellent flat season. We'll start off with the 3-year-old colt, Paul. I'll give you my selection first because I feel like it's a major cop-out. I promise they're not all this bad. But I'm going to go for Shadow of Light for the Godolphin team. I'm a massive fan of the boys in blue, and he's currently second favourite for the Guineas, where he will be stepping up to a mile. He beat Expanded by a neck in the Dewhurst, and his breeding and that run in itself suggests that he looks like he should relish that step up to a mile. He was crowned Europe's champion 2-year-old, and that's following in the footsteps of the likes of Pinatubo and Native Trail for Charlie Appleby. So he's a horse I couldn't ignore. I had to have him in my horses to follow. We've also got, with the upcoming Guineas, you know, he may not necessarily win all of the races through the whole season, but certainly with the Guineas, Ballydoyle have mentioned that, you know, there's a couple of their hot pots that may not be quite ready. So Shadow of Light could take advantage of that in the same way that Notable Speech did last year. So I'm really looking forward to seeing him. Who's your 3-year-old colt to follow, Paul?
Okay, well, I should make it clear to our viewers that neither Izzy nor I have told each other which horses we've picked here. So it's a surprise to each of us what the other has chosen. But my choice for my 3-year-old colt to follow is actually Expanded.
Oh my God!
It's the horse that was beaten a neck by Shadow of Light at Newmarket in October. Now, this one is trained by Aidan O'Brien. Of course, he's got so many good horses to choose from. They don't always get there in time for the early stages of the season, but you know, we're looking at horses to follow. So we're looking through the high summer run and everything else. This horse won a maiden on his debut at the Curragh in good style. He beat a decent sort called First Wave. And then he was beaten by Shadow of Light, which, as you just heard, is Izzy's pick. I would put the case, you know, if I was up in court here, I'd be arguing, my lord, that Shadow of Light was a fortunate winner because there was only 5 runners and they split into 2 little groups. And Shadow of Light was a much more experienced horse than Expanded when they met at Newmarket in that Group 1 at the end of the season. And I think in being beaten just a neck, that was a really commendable performance from Expanded against a much more experienced and battle-hardened rival. So my view is that Expanded can turn the tables on Shadow of Light. So we've got a real head-to-head between me and Izzy on this one. And if they both make it to Newmarket first of all and then going on through the season, I could see these two taking each other on a few times. There are plenty of other good 2-year-olds from last season that we'll see whether or not they're going to make up as 3. I think Opera Ballo is an interesting 3-year-old colt, and Henri Matisse, another one for Ballydoyle. But for me, it's Expanded as my 3-year-old colt to follow. He's got the pedigree and is in the right hands.
So our next ones to follow will be our 3-year-old fillies. The obvious answer here for me would be Desert Flower, but I'm not going to do that, even though I am really looking forward to seeing her. I'm actually going for one of Rafe Beckett's fillies. Now, obviously, he has got a reputation as being a fantastic trainer of fillies, much to his despair, because obviously he just wants to be known as generally a great trainer, not a great trainer of fillies. But one that I really like the look of is Cathedral. She's by Too Darn Hot, and she raced a little bit keenly in a Group 3 at Ascot last season. She ended up getting headed in the dying strides by Aidan O'Brien's filly Merrily, who's touted to do quite well this season as well. Obviously, she's got some of Frankel heritage as well because she's by War and Peace. And so there's that kind of in there. I think she currently holds entries in the 1,000 Guineas, the Irish 1,000 Guineas, and the Oaks. So they look like they're expecting pretty big things from her. And she's one that I will just be keeping my eye on for ammo racing, actually. So yeah, Cathedral for me is my 3-year-old filly. What about you, Paul?
It's an interesting pick, Cathedral. Mine is another one bred by Coolmore, but not trained by Aidan O'Brien. This one is trained by his younger son, Donica O'Brien. And this is a filly called Falling Snow. Now, Falling Snow just has had the one run that was at the Curragh in August. And she put up a really good performance where she beat a filly called Ballet Slippers, who's I think rated at over 100 itself. And you could see her learning on the job, and she was given a lovely ride by Gavin Ryan to come through and lead in the closing stages. That was over 7 furlongs. She's going to stay further. She's got a wonderful pedigree. She's by the American star sire Justify, and her dam is Winter. And that means that her pedigree puts them very close to some very good horses. The dam, of course, was a Group 1 winner 4 times at up to 1.25 miles. So this is a really hot pedigree. Now, I think she's slipped slightly under the radar because she's only had that one run in a maiden. But Donica showed last season with the very good filly whose name has just escaped my memory, Porter something or other. Porter Fortuna, that was it, Porter Fortuna, that he can campaign fillies at the very highest level and produce them absolutely spot on. So this is the one that I'm going to go with, Falling Snow, to spring a bit of a surprise in the Guineas. And I think she might be a type that stays at least 1.25 miles. Who knows, maybe even 1.5 miles.
Now for the older horse that we're going to look at, like you said, Paul, at the top of the show, we're looking here for one that is potentially going to be running in some group races, maybe some sort of higher class races for them. I personally found this one the hardest to pick because there's just so many that I'm really looking forward to seeing. One that's already actually had a run out in Dubai for the Dubai Gold Cup, where I really like Believing as well. So I thought, let's go for the one that sticks out the most to me as one of the horses that I really wanted to follow from last season, and that is KALPANA for Andrew Balding. She impressed me so much in her 3-year-old season. She won a listed race at Hamilton, and then she won against her own sex in a Group 1 on British Champions Day. So I'm really looking forward to seeing her 4-year-old season, and she looks as if she's going in the Gold Cup at the Curragh. She's also got an entry in the Coronation Cup at Epsom, and I'm really looking forward to seeing her. I think she was very, very impressive, and yeah, my highlight, I would say, of the 3-year-olds last year was KALPANA.
Well, it's an interesting pick. I think she's, a filly that's likely to pay her way this season at a very high level. You've gone for a middle distance campaigner. I've gone for a sprinter. And my choice as the older horse to follow for this season is the 4-year-old colt, Kind of Blue. Kind of Blue is trained by James Fanshawe. James Fanshawe is a terrific trainer, and he's had a particularly great record over the years with sprinters. And Kind of Blue is by Blue Point, who has already established himself as a sire of very good sprinters. And he didn't race as a 2-year-old. So he took a bit of time, but he started off at 3, won his first 2 races, and then on his third start, he finished 4th in the Commonwealth Cup at Ascot. Later on, he was beaten just ahead in a hot race at the Curragh, and then his form went up to another level at the end of that first season last autumn, when he was beaten just ahead. Remember, he was only a 3-year-old. He was beaten ahead by the older horse Montasib in the Betfred Sprint Cup, the Haydock Sprint Cup in September. And then after that, he took another step forward with an absolutely superb performance, I thought, on ground softer than I imagine was ideal, when he beat 19 rivals at Ascot on Champions Day in the Champions Sprint, just doing enough to beat Swing Along. The nice thing about this horse is that he does seem to go on just about any ground. He's got a lot of class. He's only had 1 season racing so far, so surely there's quite a likelihood that he can get even better this season. And I think he could become champion sprinter. So Kind of Blue is my choice for James Fanshawe to do best and give us an older horse that's going to pay its way this season at a high level.
Be nice to have some new sort of sprinters on the scene. Obviously last year it was, what did you have, like Big Evs and Bradsell kind of having those showdowns, and Believing was throwing herself in there as well. So certainly some nice to have a sprinter on the radar. Now on to a couple of handicappers for both of us, Paul. My first one is has hints of Maradona about it. I like Hand of God. He was a horse that really took me when he won the Golden Gate Stakes at Royal Ascot. He also won the Esher Cup, so he had quite a fantastic season last season. He's a 4-year-old now. He has been gelded, so I'm looking forward to seeing how he gets on, over that usual 1 mile, 1 mile 2. He's pretty versatile with the ground, so I'd like to see him kind of get off the boards quite quickly it's the Harry Charlton team.
So Hand of God for you. My first of the 2 handicappers is one trained by Richard Hannon. It's a horse called ARAMRAM. It's a colt, another one by Blue Point. And he's a sprinter, is ARAMRAM. Just seems to me that this is a horse that is going to really pay his way this season. He was really progressive last year. He won at Doncaster in a handicap there in September. He then was beaten just into second place in the Ayr Silver Cup by that very progressive sprinting filly Alpha Kalenic, who you may recall. He's already this season shown himself to be in good shape with 2 good runs on the all-weather, narrowly beaten at Kempton, and then last time out just beaten a short head by Ferris off a mark of 91. I can see him improving to a mark of up to 100 and hopefully picking up a few nice prizes along the way. So ARAMRAM is the first of my 2 handicappers to follow this season.
My second one is, look, I'm a massive fan of National Hunt racing, I'm not going to lie, and I felt like I had to try and squeak a link in there somewhere. So I've actually gone for East India Dock as a handicapper that I'm going to be keeping an eye on. Obviously, he's had a very good National Hunt season. He was 3rd in that Triumph Hurdle, and James Owen is absolutely certain that if that race would have started where it was meant to start and not 10 mile back, that he'd have actually won it. So he's got a couple of flat entries again this year. Obviously, he has transitioned between flat and National Hunt previously. So I'll be rooting for him and hoping and praying that Poneros is not in any of the races that he runs in.
Okay. Well, funny, as I said, we didn't discuss our 5. We're hearing them here for the first time. Mine doesn't have a completely dissimilar profile. He's not as good a hurdler, but this is a horse called Blake. Now, Blake was trained last season by Peter Chappell-Hyan, but he was then sold in the winter to join Noel Mead, who's one of my very favourite trainers. Now, last season, Blake did well. He won at Sandown over the mile on soft ground. He beat a very progressive handicapper, another one that was on my shortlist called EBT's Guard. And then he won again at Sandown over 1.25 miles on soft ground at the July meeting at Sandown. Now, I think the caveat with this horse is I don't think he wants fast ground. If it's a dry summer, we're not going to see very much of him. But after he was sold and joined Noel Mead, he ran very well on his only start over hurdles for Noel when second of 19 at Cork in March, on the 20th of March. I just think that the change of scene will do him good, and I can see him doing well in Ireland and possibly tackling one or two of the big British handicaps at up to 1.5 miles. So Blake is my second handicapper to follow for 2025.
Very exciting. So there you go, guys. There are 10 flat horses to follow from me and Paul for the upcoming flat season. That is all we've got time for in today's video. Please do put your flat horses to follow in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you soon.